Kraven the Hunter is probably the best of Sony's Spider-Man-less Spider-Man movies. That's an incredibly low bar to clear, but I guess it's something. Although it is head and shoulders above its peers in the SSU, this movie befuddled me more than those, so much so that I felt the need to do a deep dive on the whole shebang. So if you were curious about it, even after all this time, I hope this video will be helpful. First scene, prisoners being transported to a Russian prison, and Sergei Kravenov is one of them. We later find out he's got an Arrow Season 1 thing going on, where he has a list of bad guys that he's executing under the code name Kraven, which is just a shortening of his name, so not much of a code name. He's also sometimes called the Hunter, and already I'm confused. In the few scenes we see Kraven in action, he doesn't demonstrate mercy, so I don't know how he gets a reputation in the criminal underworld. But that's not the only thing that's confusing. If Kraven sees himself as a vigilante with a code that isn't ever spelled out, then how did he get in this prison? I get what this scene is doing. First impressions are important. If we first see Kraven in a hospital crying because a lion was mean to him, we wouldn't think he's very imposing, even if most of us would react the same way in this situation. We want our audience to be wowed right from the start. So I guess he deliberately gets himself thrown in prison because one of the guys on his list is in there, then he breaks out effortlessly, and the crowds go wild. If you told me Batman hacked into the government and got himself thrown into prison so he could talk to somebody, I would believe that because Batman's demonstrated that level of skills before. But Kraven is effectively a new character for most people. At least he is for me. By and large, I know nothing about him, just his name and his general vibe. To my knowledge, the Kraven of the Marvel Universe doesn't actually have powers, while this one does. So even Spidey fans, this is still a new version of the character. And this movie shows us a guy who lives in the woods. It's a nice cabin with the secret compartments and everything, but he's still a guy who lives in the woods. I see nothing that indicates he could sneak in and out of a prison. Did he commit an actual crime? Well, no, because he has a code. Did he do a Count of Monte Cristo and save a whole bunch of people so they were indebted to him and he gets them to help him in and out? That might explain the woman with the plane, but I can't make that jump to conclusions based on what this movie shows us. Then we get the longest flashback I've ever seen, set 16 years earlier, and it feels 16 years long. Sergei and his brother Dmitri are called back home because their mother has died and their dad wants them to take up the family business, gangster stuff. And the best way to prepare for that, if you guessed a hunting trip in Africa, you're smarter than I am. A lion attacks Sergei, this girl Calypso uses a magic potion to heal him, dad wants to separate the brothers, so Sergei runs away. Yeah, that'll show him. Separate yourself from your brother. During all of this, Sergei becomes a big animal lover, even though it looked like he was about to shoot the lion. Sure, self-defense, sure, dad is forcing you on this hunt, but you weren't accidentally holding a gun. You had plans to use it, and you didn't know your dad was behind you and would have seen you if you decided not to shoot. Then we get two scenes in a row showing Kraven dealing harshly with poachers. Maybe Kraven's just mad that they're being wasteful. He does wear a fur coat at the end of the movie, and something had to die for that to get made. But look at that, lions are kind of endangered, so I don't know. If he does have a code, sure would be nice if we knew what it was. In the present day, even though we just saw Kraven killing some poachers, apparently we need to see it again. Then he kills some other guys. Then, because we just saw the 16 years ago flashback, I guess Kraven was watching that too, and he needs to thank Calypso for saving his life. I don't know why you waited until now to do that. It feels like somebody just watched Batman Begins, which also had a flashback component and a hero returning to his childhood friend. But in that movie, we have a solid explanation of why and where Bruce has gone, and why he needs to come back. We have no idea why Kraven waits 16 years to get reacquainted with this girl he didn't even know, other than the movie has to happen. He tells Calypso he killed the guy who killed her friend, and she's pretty okay with that. She still talks about how great Law and Order is, but she's not turning him in, so I guess she doesn't believe in Law and Order that much. He wants her to help him be the Arrow, and she says she'll think about it. What exactly have you been doing for the last 16 years that you now need her help? Dmitri is kidnapped, and it feels like somebody watched a couple of Captain America movies. Barefoot chase with an automobile? Check. Try to stop a helicopter from taking off with your bare hands? Check. But the baddies get away, so Kraven needs Calypso's help rescuing Dmitri. I'm not sure exactly what she is able to do to help him find Dmitri, but he seems to think that she is useful. Because I'm an idiot, it was only as I was researching for this script that I realized this guy in the flashback is the Rhino in the present day. I was probably distracted because he goes from the 1970 70s Jenner haircut to a buzz in the present day. And if anyone ever says Clark Kent's disguise is weak, I will fight them on it after being fooled by this. Remember what I said about the importance of first impressions? First time we see Rhino in the present day, he's wearing this cutesy little backpack and a shirt that is 74 sizes too small for him. He looks like a little boy on his first day of school, and he's chasing a dog that won't give him his ball back. He's probably the least threatening villain I've ever seen. He's taking over the gangs of London, but I can't even give him that since Kraven was eliminating the competition for him. Rhino gets some video footage from the prison Kraven escaped from and wants to eliminate Kraven or get him to work for him. Rhino is behind Dimitri's kidnapping, and he hires some guy called the Foreigner, who I didn't know was a Spider-Man villain. The Foreigner is doing, you know what, I'm not even sure what, beyond stabbing everyone he meets in the back. He finally talks with the Rhino, you know, the guy who hired him, and the Rhino threatens to take his eyes out for some reason. Then he asks the guy he hired why he's interested in Kraven. What, you're questioning why someone is following your orders? The Rhino tells Dimitri he used to be weak, and then he went to Dr. Miles Warren. Are you listening, Dimitri? Dr. Miles Warren. That might be important later. I guess in this universe, the Jackal is just handing out powers to anyone who wants them. Not a terrible idea for a big superhero universe. All these people have powers. What if they're getting them from a specific source on purpose? That would be a better gimmick to use in an actual Spider-Man story where Spider-Man is dealing with supervillains, not so much as a handwave in this story where the supervillains almost feel like an afterthought. Calypso tells Kraven eventually his vigilante activities will catch up to him and affect those he cares about. He's been doing this for 16 years, I think, so I'm not sure why it's taken this long for that to happen, especially if he has a reputation in the criminal underworld. Since he doesn't wear a mask, I assume whoever lived to spread his reputation saw his face. If he's the son of an even somewhat well-known gangster, I would think other gangsters would recognize him. But because the movie needs to happen, Brother gets kidnapped in the present day, and maybe because of the Foreigner doing stuff, the Rhino knows Calypso is friendly with Kraven, so they try to kidnap her too, but she sneaks off and hides in Kraven's house. Kraven tries to get his dad to pay for Dimitri's release. Dad says no. Rhino wants Kraven to work for him. Kraven says no. We get some action scenes. Then Dimitri has a gun on Rhino, and it feels like somebody just watched Batman Returns, where a man who has murdered most of the bad guys in Gotham City tells his girlfriend killing isn't the way, as Kraven, who is the most violent of all of the SSU characters, tells his brother, no, don't kill him. I guess I'll give this scene a pass. He wants to preserve his brother's innocence, but it still seems hypocritical after how many people Kraven has killed. Kraven finds out Dad was the one who leaked to the Rhino that the mysterious hunter was Kraven, as part of some master plan where Dimitri would get kidnapped and Kraven would save him. Which, wow, how all could this have gone wrong? What if the Rhino thought you were in on his schemes, Dad? He's been methodically eliminating your competition, leaving you alive. What if the Rhino comes for you instead of the brother? As abusive and awful as you've been to your family, you do seem to at least think you love your sons. What if Dimitri dies? Kraven is stronger than the average bear, but he's not invincible. What if he dies? Seems very risky when at least the Rhino seems to think he might already be on Kraven's hit list. So maybe you could have waited and let your son do what he does. But no, Kraven finds out, steals his dad's bullets without him noticing, and Kraven had a conversation with a bear, kill this guy, but only do it as I do my cool walk away from him. That's another thing. The movie kinda has Kraven talk to animals when it wants him to, but he doesn't always. It's not important. We're almost done. We jump forward a year. Kraven calls out his brother for falling into the old family business, which, it's been a year. How are you just now getting around to this? If you're as connected in the criminal underworld as I thought, you would have known about this already. Dimitri went to Dr. Miles Warren, and that scene where he was mentioned was so subtle. Who would have known it would be important later? He got chameleon powers for some reason. Not sure if those specifically will help you run a gang. They might be helpful if you were doing corporate espionage or even international espionage, which was what the character was in the comics. But just a regular ordinary gang, not sure having a weird face will be much help. Chameleon calls out Kraven and says it is just as much his fault that he got kidnapped as it was their dad's, which, yeah, I'll give the movie this much. They have a flawed character who doesn't want to acknowledge his flaws, even when everyone else can see how much of a problem that is. And the movie doesn't let him get away from facing the consequences. Not that it matters, as the SSU is dead, thank goodness, but if it wasn't, presumably Kraven would have to face his brother, all because he thought he could kill gangsters with impunity. Chameleon says Dad left Kraven something which, It's been a year. How did this not come up in that time? And it's the jacket, which feels like somebody watched Black Widow where, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I want to reiterate, this is the best in the SSU, but it's still not great. I doubt I'll ever watch it again. While it has some issues that befuddle me, I don't know if I would go so far as to say it's so bad to reach truly terrible, but other than one or two tiny kernels of okay, it doesn't have enough good for me to really enjoy it either. It's right in that lukewarm territory that's worse than really awful. So if you somehow still haven't seen it and you were curious about it, I hope my mild suffering has helped you make up your mind on seeing it. Until next time, have a good one.